Welcome, everyone, to Mythstorie, a podcast about myths and history. I am one of your hosts, Bryant, with my permanent guest, Cammy. Cammy, thank you for being here again. Welcome.
Bryant, thank you for hosting always.
I literally couldn't do without you. Everyone, I'm just so happy. I'm elated right now. I'm cold, and the air's not on. There's no fans on. It's just cold. That's what it is in South Carolina right now. And that's because it's fall. And more importantly, it's October now when you're listening to this, which means spoopiness, which means scary stories and fun, creepy things like we did last year, which was one of the best ways to start the show. I'm so glad we started the podcast when we did, because we had like 2 episodes to like ramp ourselves into like core myth, but then we went straight into like Vlad the Impaler and mummies and banshees. Get your banshee. Everyone, Mythstorie, that's what we do here. We like to find fun myths and legends. We try and present a story of those myths and legends to you, and then talk about some of the sources and the history and the facts, if there are any there, behind it. Today we've got one. It's not super duper duper scary, but honestly kind of is a little disturbing though in the end. This is the Pied Piper of Hameln or Hammon or Hamelin or whatever part of Europe you're in, talking about it. We'll kind of discuss that, but yeah, I think everyone knows the Pied Piper. That's a pretty.
Do you want to tell everybody what we're doing our theme this month? Because last time it was monsters, right? And now.
Yeah, so we're gonna have 4 episodes this month, like we did last year, and every myth that we talk about is going to be an unsolved murder mystery myth. That's where we're going here. So you're thinking, Pied Piper, who gets murdered? A flute? No, a few dozen children get murdered. That's who. But that's a little spoiler alert. Before Cammy regales us with a wonderful story of this doodly dootin' guy, please take a moment, if you can. If you haven't already, join our Facebook group. That's one of the prime ways we get in touch with everyone, and check out our Threadless store that we have. Cammy, how do we reach that?
So it's Mythstorie, and that's story with an IE, .threadless.com. And we have 3 different designs, and you can choose different things for each design. There's drop-down menus. So I think it's like set on men's shirts, but there's women's shirts, there's children's shirts. There's things that aren't shirts.
What's the discount code?
I can read it out.
Perfect. Yeah, you get 10% off your order. Is that correct?
That is correct. Let me just grab it.
No problem. I'm going to stall for you right now as I put you on the spot for a code that I didn't prepare myself. But it is really cool. We're really happy, guys. And Cammy ordered a shirt, and it looks well. It melds well. I've heard of Threadless before, and they worked well.
So the code is FAM. That's FAM 9 E as in Echo 48 C as in Charlie 4 C as in Charlie.
That's it, guys.
10% off.
Yeah, please check it out. So anyway, in conclusion, spoopy October. Very happy. 4 episodes. Unsolved murder myths. Cammy, lay the Pied Piper of Hameln on us.
Okay. So yes, I used, I'm going to say Hammond.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I used Hammond.de. So the city of Hammond had been plagued by a rat infestation for some time. The locals had expended all of their efforts, but the rats would not leave. They were eating all of the grain in the granary and chewing holes into the houses, so the cold winter air would come through at night. The town was exhausted and wanted nothing more than an end to this horrible pestilence. As luck would have it, a strange man arrived in Hammond, dressed in many colors and dancing in the streets to the music he played from his flute. The citizens noticed how small animals and even children seemed to follow him and dance along. He was surprised at the gloomy nature of the adults in the village and inquired as to their troubles. They all had the same reply: rats. He claimed to be the most excellent rat catcher in all of the land and offered his services to cheer the town. But he did have a price. He needed money for his travels, so he asked for gold. The village council agreed that they would give him his pay in return for the end to their nightmares. He asked for half then, which they gave him, and half when he completed his task. The piper put his instrument to his lips and began a special song as he walked every street. The rats poured from the houses, the church, the granary, everywhere a rat might hide was soon empty. And the piper kept playing as he marched them right out of town into the river, where they all willfully jumped to their deaths. The piper came back to the sight of happy villagers, young and old, and told them what happened to the rats and assured them they would never come back. The entire village danced all night to the piper's music, but when morning came and he asked for the rest of his earnings, the council refused, saying he had already been paid more than enough for his trouble. Without a word, he left on foot, playing a somber song. Hammond had all but forgotten about their oddly dressed savior by the time summer came. But on June 26, 1284, the man suddenly appeared again. He was no longer dressed in as many colors, but he was now in a somber green with a red hat, the color of fresh blood. The people were on their way to church, so they paid him little attention. But soon after the church bells rang, a curious flute melody filled the air, and he charted the same course he took earlier that year, through every street until all of the children were following him in a neat, merry line. When the people emerged from church, they were just in time to see the children crossing the last hill on the road out of town. Though they followed quickly, no trace of the children was seen. Only 3 escaped: a blind boy who lost his way, a girl with a broken leg who could not keep up, and a boy who forgot his coat and ran back to get it. None of them could tell where the piper had gone. It has been over 700 years since their children left, but they all now know the cost is greater when you don't pay the piper.
Oh,
creepy.
Mic. That was good. So, now, yeah, I didn't kind of clarify. A lot of spellings will put like Hamelin in a lot of English spelling sources, and then some omit the I in the Lin part, and Cammy, her astute research found out Hammond is sort of how it's pronounced. So I'll say Hammond too, but you might see Hamelin, or you might have heard Hamelin. We're sorry if we're wrong or whatever. You get it. Okay. Yes.
It's not our fault this time. It's just a word
It's,
that's spelled several different ways.
Anglo-Saxon problems. But this is a really interesting story because of it's so well known, this whole idea of a dude doodly-dooting his flute and getting all the rats out. And you think of like, you know, I remember when you were a kid and you learn, oh, did you know that the big bad wolf was actually like the wolf like maliciously murders the kids, and it's what they told them a long time ago. To like, that's kind of what the story kind of feels like, you know. It's like, oh, well, when I first heard it, it was just happiness, but then I learned it's actually bad. But then you kind of, in my research, it's a little bit more than that. Now, there's nothing really definitive here, but it is extremely important. The city today, I mean, Cammy used the official website for the city. They've got tons of stuff going on. My sources are a BBC article, Wikipedia, and there was airynews.com. But in the BBC article, it actually like has pictures of this dude who dresses up like the Pied Piper. Well, he dresses like an idiot. No, sorry. He dresses in a funny like jester garb thing and acts like the Pied Piper, and then gives a tour basically. And so it's super popular. It's been retold. Brothers Grimm, all that stuff have, you know, sources throughout the next few hundred years would retell the story. Now, the oldest sort of proof that we have of it is a glass window that was around 1300. So the events are said to have taken place around 1284. So within about 20 years, it looks like they made a glass window in memoriam of the event happening. The event primarily being a bunch of kids disappearing, essentially. Now, how that happened, we're not 100% sure. I'll kind of go into that in a minute. But this glass window was destroyed in 1660, but it was well written about. It was well mentioned in several sources prior to its destruction. So There's also a document from 1384 that talks about 100 years since our kids have left. Cammy also mentioned there's another document in 1484 that says in the year of 1284 on June 26, a piper clothed in many kinds of colors, 130 children born in Hammon were seduced and lost at the place of execution near the hill. So we've got these primary sources from the area, glass window, specifically talking about it and setting a time and a date. Our case is almost there.
I'm surprised that there's an exact date.
Yeah, it is pretty wild, especially around this time. You wouldn't think it'd be so set. But there's even Richard Rowland Verstagen wrote a book in 1605 that actually stated a new, or that analyzed it a new way. And he states that the children were not harmed, but emigrated specifically to Transylvania, where Vlad the Impaler would take care of them. No, that's fine. That's we're not quite at that time. But it's interesting here. One thing is, no sources until like the 1600s or 1700s even mention the rat stuff. Which you'd think, if it's the Pied Piper, which Rottenfanger von Hamon. Rottenfanger von Hamon, which Rotten, probably German for like rat. Fanger,
rat catcher, yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was cool. Fanger is spelled like fang with an ER. You think of fang, it catches, So the rat catcher. But that came kind of later, it looks like. That part of the story was filled in later. And
do you think that was in some response to the plague?
It could be. None of my sources kind of talked about this. I mean, I'm sure rats for all of time, especially during the medieval period, were super troublesome. So it would make sense. But Cammy, we've got a few keywords that we'll bring up a lot of times. One of them, myth theme. It's not a pun. It's an actual word. It doesn't sound like it is, but it is. And those are, myth themes, these ideas that happen kind of independent of themselves that keep recurring in cultures and things like that. And another one of my favorites, euhemerism. It's a Greek term. I'm going to read the Wikipedia definition before I kind of talk about it. So euhemerism is an approach to the interpretation of mythology in which mythological accounts are presumed to have originated from real historical events or personages. Euhemerism supposes that historical accounts become myths as they are exaggerated in the retelling, accumulating elaborations and alterations and rat catchers. No, and that reflect cultural mores. So the plague, in this instance, could have been a cultural moray where rats are causing crap and you go on. So what euhemerism is, though, and we've talked about it, I think we first talked about it on the Medusa episode.
Medusa, yes. Check that out, yeah.
So, man, super intense. Yeah, the scholarship behind Medusa concept. And that's what is playing here. So there's a few explanations, and rat catching isn't really what explains it, though. Now, the traditional story is rat problem, hire the rat dude. They don't pay up. He murders or sells kids into slavery.
Yeah,
it's a little intense.
Some of the accounts say that he brought them back. Like some of the new, like happier, like 20th century stuff.
Took him on a field trip. Yeah, like, I mean, it was... or that he took them, was paid, brought him back, that kind of thing. So yeah, there is those accounts, but it's kind of funny. None of my sources, I'm thinking about this now. None of my sources talked about if it's possible to do a bunch of rats. I don't think it is possible. So I think that kind of helps convince us that wasn't really a part of it. The thing that we do have, though, is we have evidence of a few things. So crusades, the need for immigrants in the Transylvania area, and people called locators. This is Lokator. It's essentially the same thing as the way they use locator to locate something. But a locator, it's a German word. It's a term for basically people that would they were like talent agents, but they were looking for labor and they were looking for people. It doesn't seem like it's quite like a slave sort of connotation to it, but there's a few things.
It seems like they're getting paid for the work, but it's probably horrible work.
It's not great. It's not as like like we raid your village, take your kids kind of thing. What it seems like is the euhemerism here is that there was an event in this town in 1284 where 100 kids went gone. There a few ideas. Some that kind of make sense is a mass disease of some kind that took over the kids, and it was a deep tragedy. But what kind of explains the presence of the Piper in this sense is someone who's coming around now. Some of the theories from my sources talk about, again, like a locator coming around these villages, specifically looking either for like soldiers for crusades and things like that. But if you imagine if it was children, there was a lot of women as well. I mean, they could still use women in camps, but anyway, they wouldn't necessarily like armor them up, but they could be using them for military campaigns and things like that. But I feel like labor would have been the thing, and the reason why it would have been emigration towards like Transylvania in that region is specifically would make sense because of Mongolian and Turkic ravaging the area. So those lands had always been super populated, and after, it's a very tumultuous area there. So huge population drops because of that. People need laborers. You export 100 kids from Hammond, you're good to go. It still seems kind of weird. I imagine if that was the case, this person would have been grabbing a lot more than just 100 kids specifically from there. I'm sure they would have had some kind of a route where they would have been pulling kids from everywhere. So, but we don't have any other cities that specifically wrote this down in the same way. Again, we got these sources from the 13th, 14th, and 15th centuries that like are very specific. So that's the kind of the wild thing about it. That
One
kind of
thing
makes it so narrow.
that I came across on that Hammond website was that the locators were dressed a lot of times in bright colors and would play instruments. So
yeah.
That probably makes the most sense to me.
Yeah,
unless there was just some crazy serial killer,
right? And that's like someone supposed that it was a crazy, like pedophile or murderer, and it's just like, is he really able to get 100 kids that easy? Like really? Like some farmer couldn't just chuck a pitchfork at the dude?
And I would maybe chalk that up to euhemerism and expanding the myth, the 100 number, if maybe 10 kids went missing. But the facts are that it was so well documented that there's no way they were wrong about the number, because I mean this is a document from, it's like written on some building that's still standing.
An inscription. There's a document of some kind too with writing on it as well.
Right. And also the idea of it being just children. So a lot of times you'll say like the children of, but mean like the people. And in a more broad sense, not like actual children.
That's what I was thinking. It would be, again, you want like the able-bodied people, and that would be like teens and things like that, like people who could technically like have children and stuff like that as well. But you wouldn't be looking for the old people, 30, like they'll got ancient grandpas back then. They're worthless. So that is another good way to put it. It specifically references children, but it looks like the myth making of it, the euhemerism of it, was that it turned into like a bunch of 6-year-olds. We have 100 6-year-olds in our village, and they're all running around.
I wonder what the population was back then.
Yeah, I know.
To have 100 like actual children in a town seems odd to me. I don't know.
Well, I imagine, unfortunately, having multiple kids was surely common back then, and not a lot of them making it was even more common, unfortunately. That's definitely, I think everyone kind of understands that, especially in 1284. But so I feel like that's why it also wasn't as crazy as a blow. I mean, you lose like a generation almost, but like, next year you've got how many families popping out more kids. So I mean, obviously Hammond recovered its population issue. It was able to kind of move on, but it did lose a chunk of kids. And I've kind of talked about everything, the theories, the facts. We do have the evidence, which is really the coolest part about this, the stuff that really does like say like this happened, 100 kids are gone. And then the theories of recruitment basically of some kind, these locators that were taking the kids that were finding these kids. And they, again, if it was like the locators don't really seem super malicious, so it's like did he buy the kids and they were like, oh man, this is really good money. I don't want to lose 100 kids, but I'm the town, council, and we need this money. And that one kid's really snot-nosed, like, just go. Like, I'm just curious what the motivation would have been. Like, did the locator like force it? Did he have an army with him of some kind, or a small guard? I don't know. But those are the theories that have one crazy theory, and it's tied to the idea of a bunch of kids dying, and so like in this case, then the Piper could be sort of a symbolic figure of death. So like 100 kids die of the pox, and you don't want to say like, oh, 100 kids die of the pox. So you kind of talk, you flavor it up a little bit with this figure, this dressed figure to add to the euhemerism element of it. But there's one crazy thing. I don't know if you ran into this. Did you ever read anything on the psychogenic illness, dancing mania?
Yes, and I think we should do an episode on it.
That's insane. So yes. I didn't look too much into this, and you're absolutely right. But there's a great piece that I found, one of the sources in Wikipedia when they talk about this, and there's this book or article from 1977, The Dancing Pilgrims at Moulabik. And yeah, this was a frenzy where it was like an epidemic, and it just kind of made people go like it was some sort of a disease that would occur with like abdominal pain, bloating, and you would eventually kind of just fall asleep and die, it looks like. But through it all, it would kind of make you writhe in a sense. And so they think that there could have been a freak kind of case of this affecting the children. It happened. And there's even, it's a kind of a crazy German word, but there's like a street in Hammond where dancing, it's the German word, I can't pronounce it, but it means the street with no drums. And like dancing is actually forbidden on this street. So, or like music and dancing and things like that. So I'm guessing maybe, and yeah, the dancing mania outbreaks occurred from the 13th century, from the next couple of 100 years. So it's wild. I don't know if was he a locator trying to find people to fill population voids? Was he the harbinger of disco fever? We don't know. But yes, the dancing mania is an absolutely wild subject that there's a lot there that we could really go into. But guys, that is the Pied Piper, and the takeaway is a bunch of kids did go somewhere. We don't know where, we don't know how, but we've got this little doodly dootin guy now, and that's about all we've got left from all of this. So Cammy, thank you for your story. I think that was a really good representation of the common story mixed in with some of the stronger elements that talk about or that discuss what happened. There's tons of iterations here, so check out some stuff if you like. I think Cammy, you're right. We totally could do a dancing mania episode, because there were several recorded cases looking into it, and it's absolutely strange. But everyone, thank you for listening. Let us know what you think. Our Facebook group is probably the best way to get into us, but we are on Twitter, and you can watch this on YouTube as well if you'd prefer to see Cammy and I discuss stuff. Don't forget, too, we have our episodes with Peter. We dub them the Podicus Magnus episodes. They're little fun, longer episodes. We just did one on volcanoes, and we've got a spoop one coming up soon, too. That'll be a lot of fun for Halloween. God, I'm just so happy it's fall.
I do want to do a call as well, since we are doing a regular Podicus Magnus, but we are going to do a Suburban Legends as well, where it's user-sourced material. Yep. So if you have something, please email us, get in touch with us on Facebook. If you have our numbers, you can text us. Yeah. We'd love to hear from you. So
yeah, if you haven't heard
any
the
spooky
last one,
personal story that you have,
right? Yeah. It can be like the last show. I mean, the first one we did was fantastic. Just take a look. It's called Suburban Legends, and it was really great. And it can be a personal story. It can be like a local story for like your town or something like that. We just like to have things that are a little more personal, a little more bite-sized things, not grand concepts and stuff like that. But if it's something we haven't touched, let us know. We're totally down for it. So awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Cammy, thank you again. We will see you next time.
Oh.
I'm here
Doo-doo.